Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Riverside Ramble. Today I am joined by Team IR EU Manager, Mr. Mark Mulrain. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for joining.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you with us. It feels like we've been trying to arrange this one for a very long time, so I'm glad to have it done. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. My kind of usual go-to questions to get people started here are, number one, you're on a road trip and it's a long paddling trip. You're getting to the river, but it's going to take a long time. What is your snack of choice and what is your playlist on the way?
It's got to be some kind of chocolate and probably ridiculously unhealthy fizzy drinks. It's my curse. It's my vice. Playlist. Do you know what? I wouldn't be annoyed if someone put on like the Bomb Flow soundtrack, but Bomb Flow before it went to dubstep.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Sort of episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
like the Dream Result soundtrack. I'm all for that. A bit of nostalgia,
yeah,
and that
nice.
showed my age.
Yeah, no, we at the youth group that I helped to run, we were chatting recently about what would your mastermind topic be,
Mhm.
and I think mine would be being able to name artists and songs from Bombflow videos by being shown the clip.
That's quite something.
Like
My
it
wife's
just
just like, "Why do you like Empire of the Sun so much?" I'm like, well, this Iceland video and a kayaking video."
that's my misspent childhood. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Very nice. Um, Besides being the team director for IREU, you were also someone who has run volunteer events for best part of a decade. You're, I think I'm right in saying that you were fairly heavily responsible for the rise of Wet West Paddlefest. Is that correct?
Oh no, that not for the rise of Wet West Paddlefest. Wet
Okay,
West started way before me. I'd been
you
a
just made
committee
it great.
member from being like a teenager and then through university. When I finished uni, I didn't really have a club, so I asked to help out at Wet West and kind of I started as the dog's body and then became, I guess, the face of it. Maybe not always, the head or the brains of it, but certainly the kind of forward face of it.
Okay, cool, nice,
Then I had to do more when people left. So yeah, I've seen a lot of volunteers come and go, and I've been a bit of a constant throughout that time.
cool. So you've met a huge number of paddlers.
Yeah, but it's a great way to meet people, and yeah, it's a bit of work, but for the greater good, why not?
Incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, in that case, then, uh, if you had to pick between um, the Garry or any other Grade 3 river in the world, what's your choice?
Ooh, I think the Soka in Slovenia. Am I pronouncing that right? That's pretty
Sure.
good.
I've never been,
Just
so
it's a lot warmer than the Gary. So many super spots for doing coaching and just messing around. Um,
nice.
Cheap living off the river. Hopefully, good weather all the time. I'd say that's pretty good. The Gary's fun, and it's great that we have the dam release rivers. But yeah, I guess kayaking in Scotland isn't the most glamorous sometimes when you're getting off in like sideways rain. And if you're not getting off in sideways rain, you're battling the midges. You gotta
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, yeah. But then also the Scottish paddling is just very good, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
as a
I
rule.
do. I feel bad that I've never gone down to a place like the Dart, and I've only been in North Wales a few times, and I don't always catch things in condition. But I notice a lot of people coming up from down south to Scotland, and I don't notice the same amount of people going down south. And I don't know, there must be some truth in the quality of Scottish kayaking because of that.
I think there's absolutely truth in it, and this is from someone who loves the southwest and thinks that its rivers are excellent.
Yeah, I
But
can just
I
see
think
Tom Rainey watching this video and screaming at me that the
he
dart is
will be.
still the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
ever in the world.
Oh yeah, but and he's allowed to have that opinion. But I think it's you know, very careful to say. I think it is a qualitative difference in the sense that they are different, not
Hmm.
necessarily. The style is very different.
Yeah.
Like you don't really anywhere in England other than like the swale and the Lynn maybe
Mhm.
you don't really get air under your boat anywhere.
I guess
You
not.
know, unless it's like really high and you're coming off a wave train, but that's not the same
Yeah.
thing, right?
You
Whereas
guys
in
have
whereas in
more
Scotland that
predictable
is part
conditions,
that's
maybe.
far more par for the course, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone that paddles in Scotland that's, capable of grade three is probably falling off the Etive.
Oh man, the number of Buke applications that were like, oh no, another right angle picture.
Sounds like sponsorship applications.
Okay, interesting. I guess how often are you having to deal with those?
Maybe like 3 or 4 times a month. If anyone's watching
Wow,
this and I haven't gotten back to you yet, I'm sorry. My personal situation has been a little bit busy with trips to hospital and things like that recently. So I will get to you. I'm sorry. It'll happen.
you're moving that way.
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. Okay, 3 to 4 a month. I don't know what I was expecting, but I think that is more than I was expecting.
Sometimes they don't come to me. Sometimes they'll go to the States, but because they're in my region, it'll get forwarded on. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
And I
Um.
used to get them a lot from India, and I'd have to point out that India is not in Europe, and I'd have to send them on to the United States. But hey, everyone loves a trier.
Incredible. Yeah. Um. So okay, let's talk about that then. To those people who have a desperate want to be sponsored, which
Mhm.
you know, say whatever else you will about it, it can be a lovely benefit. Um, what are you saying to people?
First of all, I would say, what are you looking to get out of this experience? Because if you're just looking to get cheap kit, then I don't know, it might not be the best thing. The effort that people should really be putting into a sponsorship, let's just put it down to as like hours, like a part-time job. If you got a job at McDonald's and did as many hours as you would do as a sponsored kayaker, the monetary value of what you would recoup from the work would probably be more coming from McDonald's than it would from being a pro kayaker, if you want to call it pro kayaker.
Yeah.
So is it worth it in that regard? Are you wanting to, pick and choose your items from different companies? It might not be what you're actually looking for, and unless you're dedicated to sharing that part of your life on the internet and putting in the hours, doing like voluntary stuff like I've done, you know,
Yeah.
it might not be worth it.
Totally.
A
And
good,
when you're saying the hours, you're
yeah,
not talking about the hours spent sitting in a kayak
it can be
expressly.
part of it,
Yeah.
but perhaps if you were doing hours in a kayak, it's not kayaking that would be necessarily for you. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
take that the recent the Pam and Piranha tour. All the guys that were going around there are basically going around whitewater courses, and I highly doubt that they would actually want to spend their time going around whitewater courses if they had 2 weeks off from work. They'd probably be going abroad and doing something that's going to be pushing their limits.
Yeah.
I know it's fun. That's great that they all enjoy it, and that's exactly what you want from a sponsored kayaker, to be doing that stuff with people and having a bit of a community outreach.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
But most of the time, the work means, YouTube videos, Instagram posts, writing gear reviews or doing videos like that, maybe sending feedback to a company. Um, you know, I used to get emails back and forth from Piranha for how the outfitting should look. And then, a lot of those hooker thigh braces, they looked a lot like some sketches I'd drawn. Not saying that I was the only person doing those drawings, but they looked a lot like them.
Yeah, well, they're a good design, so that's
Yeah.
yeah, tick.
So yeah, I think if you want to be part of something and you want to contribute, and maybe you, I would like to think you'd want to contribute over, a long period of time. I, I wouldn't really like to pick up someone and then after a year they're like, "Thanks, I've got a better deal somewhere else."
Yeah.
Not kind of the person I'd really want. Um, and if I got an application from someone and I could see that they had like one, two, three in sponsors in the past few years, I'd start thinking, is this person actually someone that's going to be loyal, and is that someone we want to support?
Mm, mm. Man, that's really interesting. Like brand loyalty. I mean, I think loyalty generally is something that's sort of missing in society, but brand loyalty in particular, I think, is something that is really interesting
Mm.
in kayaking. Well, maybe more broadly as well, but we're talking about kayaking because that's what we do. Um, just in terms of that willingness to stick with people and have like I'm very grateful that IR have always shown a really clear personal face, like
Yeah.
through you, through the guys in the US as well.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, different people, but yeah, um, always shown a personal face and been willing to talk. And for me, that was as important as you know whatever else I might have been getting out or putting in. Like
Yeah.
there was there was a human interaction, um, and with good people who therefore that inspires loyalty, I guess.
Certainly. I'll steal
Yeah.
a phrase from Andrew Miller from IR. He said, IR is not a kayaking company. IR is a customer service company that just happens to sell kayaking products.
Mm, yeah,
And,
and I think that's true.
I'm really happy that I'm a part of IR because they do good stuff. And I feel like, I, I bet on a good horse like all those years ago, and I'm
Yeah.
reaping the rewards of that. And it's very easy for me to be loyal to that. I can see why other people, chop and change and maybe don't have that same kind of loyalty. But
Mm,
yeah, it's always been a really great company to be a part of. And if you have any kind of interaction with these people, you feel like they deserve to be successful. So yeah, it's easy to have that loyalty.
yeah, totally. Yeah. Um,
And with other companies that maybe, aren't always perfect, um, it's good to have the feedback. So, like, I have been not so amused at, say, the shape of a cockpit rim from a certain boat manufacturer. I'm sure you could work out which. Um, but, stick with that company. The design changed for the newest boat that they brought out. You can make a difference.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you really want to be a part of a company, then, pick something you actually want to use. If there's faults with it, raise the faults, make it better. That's how these companies are going to progress. They're
yeah,
not going to progress because someone's just like, oh yeah, I'd like half price on my latest helmet, paddle,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, definitely. No, yeah, I suppose that's another thing I've always appreciated is that you have actively sought out feedback, whether good or bad,
Mm.
from people who are using the gear, um, which that's healthy, I
Yeah,
think.
means whatever
Um,
you use next year is going to be better.
yeah, exactly, and stuff gets fed back, and
Mhm.
we see it in action, which is great.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah,
got to a really good point because you're using like the Devil's Club suit, right?
yeah,
That's not really changed that much in quite a few years. It's just colors,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's a good
I
suit.
use the seven figure. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Well, I think has the Devil's Club been out for 10 years now?
No way. If it has, I'm super old.
I think it has
Oh God.
because
I hope it has. I don't think it has. I think what 2014. I think the arch rival was still about then.
yeah, I'm just trying to work it out because I have a funny feeling that I have pictures of a friend of mine in a Devil's Club suit from 20. Ah, no. I tried on a Devil's Club suit at NRS 2016 because there's those stupid photos of me. Uh,
NSR,
N-
NRS is a
N-
very different
NSR.
thing.
Yes, NSR. You're quite right. So, okay, 8 years still. That's a long time. Um,
Yeah, there's
you
been
know,
like little tweaks to them, but
yeah.
it's not too dissimilar from what first came out.
Sorry, there was a slight tangent there. Are there any other things that you're saying to people who are seeking sponsorship?
Um, I guess it's
Any other
very common
nuggets
these
of
days
advice?
for influencers making a living. And I think all these kind of sponsored kayakers, that kind of influencer model is probably quite similar to what was expected of all these sponsored kayakers all along. Sure, you're getting product to use and you're getting a good deal in that, but at the end of the day, this is a business and these companies expect some kind of something
Return.
back
Yeah.
from some kind of value from what you're doing with it. Essentially, you're a salesperson or
Yeah.
a marketing person. And if they do not see sales going up as a result of what you're doing, you don't really have value.
Yeah.
To them,
Wow.
you have value.
That's yeah. That's affirm all my viewers. You have value,
Yep.
irrespective of whether a kayaking company says you do.
Yeah. But
Fun.
if some people just want to use the gear and they just want to have a good time,
That's not necessarily
that's
adding value.
that's
Yeah.
fine. It's just it might not align with that kind of kayak sponsorship model that most of these companies probably have in their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, that would be the kind of bottom line. Are you going to increase sales for this kayak company? And
Yeah.
that happens in different ways. You could suggest a new kind of design or a new kind of spin on the product that increases its functionality. You could be showing it off to so many people that you coach. You could be an influencer for loads of online followers. There's so many different ways of doing it. But yeah, essentially you are sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's really helpful. Um, I think there are people who are better at that than others. I think.
Definitely, it comes naturally to some
Yeah.
people, and some people enjoy that spotlight and that interaction, and some people just want to do their own thing, and that's fine. I think when I started doing immersion research, I was very much, oh yeah, I'm posting this, I'm posting that, I'm going to do this, and okay, I'm not kayaking at the moment. Over 2 years out of a boat, but towards the end of when I was actually physically able to kayak, I was doing less of that, and my value to immersion research was with getting other people on board, doing my voluntary events. There was other ways of generating that, and I just wasn't wanting to share my life quite as much and put in
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
kind of hours on like video edits or posting. Yeah,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So volunteer events, volunteer work,
yeah.
that increasingly took up your time. You're saying,
I wouldn't say
or
it
was an
increasingly
increased
took up my
proportion
time,
of
but
what you were doing.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely a focus for me, and it was definitely being it went from me being like the junior person on all these organizing committees and things like that to me being the senior person. Um, and it's definitely something that too few people actually get involved with. I saw a post a few years ago, well, it's a good few years ago now, and it was about people wanting a Scottish race series. And there were all these people that wanted to have a meeting about organizing it. And I looked at it and I looked at how people were chatting, and I could see, there's so much enthusiasm of, oh, yes, we should definitely do this. But there was no one stepping up and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. For all the enthusiasm that there is out there, there's no one to take the lead on a lot of these things. And I would absolutely love it if more people would come out and do these things. So, like your race series that you were doing, that was awesome. Things like
Croc Scourge
the
Crown, it's coming back. Croc Scourge
hell yeah,
Crown Mark II is probably going to be happening at some point in the next month.
amazing.
Uh,
Things
watch this
like
space.
the Gary Boulter Cross, the North Esk race, these events only happen because people, they put their mind to it and they make it happen. They just can't survive without volunteers.
Yeah.
There's not really that kind of financial interest in the sport that some big company is going to come in and run these things for you.
Yeah.
And the national governing bodies, they have their place. They're great for doing stuff like getting event insurance and things like that and having financial backing for these. But it's not like some staff member is going to, that has like a 9 to 5 job, is going to show up on a Saturday after organizing an event in their evenings and
Yeah.
stand in the rain while kayakers, do their thing. It is down to kayakers, unfortunately, to make that happen.
Mm.
So anyone that wants to do that, I really encourage you to do it. It's awesome. You can meet so many people. You can make great friends. Hell, learn some life skills, and it did not hurt my CV at all.
Yeah. That's helpful. Well, I mean, I suppose there's an immediate, to me, there's an immediate obvious link one to the next. If you're someone who's looking to get sponsored, you're applying for sponsorship. You're giving a CV, aren't you? Effectively,
Totally.
if not actually. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
And the
and
people that
so
submit some formal CV like that, they're taken a lot more seriously.
yeah.
The amount of emails you get that are like 2 or 3 lines that, you know, they don't even give contact information. You got to hunt them down.
Mm,
The amount of attention I'd pay to that versus someone that has a fully fleshed out CV with, a lot of links, because they've thought about how to be reached and how they can convey what they're doing to other people.
yeah. Yeah.
Communication skills.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Just for flavour, what sort of community benefits do you see from that initiative to step up? What could the kayaking community look like, I suppose? What's your vision?
Well, whenever anyone goes to any of these events, so for me, it's always been like Wet West, the races, or the freestyle events. So much of that time is like, oh, it was so great seeing all my friends. It was great going kayaking with them. It's almost for some of the like maybe like the older people, well, not too old, but say people that have kids and stuff like that. It is like a big excuse to like get away from the family for the weekend. It's like, oh, this is planned in the diary.
Yeah.
So whenever these events do happen, like people are so excited for them. And if you
Mm,
could have a whole calendar of those kind of events, it only enriches the community. And yeah, I think it would help participation. It would keep the steal American phrase, keep the stoke levels high.
yeah, which we need. Uh,
Definitely.
yeah, absolutely. That's cool. And in terms of physical benefit, you mentioned a couple of things before we started recording. There are physical there are funds, I suppose, that are available or accessible.
Yeah.
Um,
So you'd be referring to the Andy Jackson Fund. And basically, there is a pot of money sitting in an account. And if you're in Scotland and want to basically improve the access to your river, you can basically submit an application to this group. So one that I wanted to do, can't do it at the moment because I can't walk, was steps at the get out of the Lenny, and it's not
mm,
anything complicated. You could basically get like cinder block bricks, sink them into the mud, and make sure they're all round. So you have steps up instead of a slippy, muddy hill. And they will give you the money for this, and they'll probably give you some assistance on who you need to contact as far as like landowners, where you can get materials from, maybe who you could get to help you out with it. It's all sitting there ready to go, but it needs people to be knocking at the door and saying, I want to do this.
yeah, that's great. Which immediately makes me think, if there is someone out there who's watching this who lives in England, for example, and thinks that sounds like a really great idea and happens to have, a spare few grand lying around, then let's start a fund like that in the UK, in England rather specifically, because
Here,
there are
actually, in
plenty of
Northern
people
Ireland,
that could
the
do with
guy
that.
that the guy that started that jewelry company, Pandora, he is a kayaker, and I think his local club are they're pretty flush with cash. So he'd be a good person if he wants to give loads of money. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well,
But
there you
hey,
go.
other jewelry companies are available.
I'm not seeking sponsorship from from Pandora.
Me neither.
I wear a silicon wedding ring at all times anyway. As someone who's been like in kayaking for a decent length of time, but also kind of in both community and commercial sides of kayaking,
Mhm.
what if anything are things that you have seen that have changed for better for worse over that time?
I think there's, for me anyway, I've seen more of a focus on people taking the sport, like a sport. It's less about going out for drinks and,
Mm,
waking up hungover and surviving the river. I see a lot more people interested in like their personal fitness and, getting time on the water, being more repetitive and less about floating, more about styling, which is really, really good, really cool.
yeah,
Um, I'd like to think that more people are trying to be a bit more conscious about what kind of gear they're buying. Um, and maybe the same with like fast fashion. You don't want to buy something that is got a short lifespan. And it's kind of like, buy cheap, buy twice, three times, whatever.
yeah,
If you're gonna get something decent. Like I think my one of my oldest bits of gear is a big, massive watershed bag that I can put all my gear in. And when I bought it, everyone said that's ridiculous. That cost you so much money. You could have got one for I think at the time you could get a Alp Kit one or a Pam one for £40, and I'd had one, and it lasted a year. And then I got the watershed one, and it's still going.
yeah, yeah.
So pounds per year, that's been a pretty cheap bag.
That's
And I
cool.
guess if we're going to talk about that kind of environmental thing, I guess the next thing is the ban on forever chemicals
Mm,
in dryware, which is a challenge, I think, for manufacturers because the alternatives are probably not to the same standard or weren't to the same standard as the PFAS free stuff.
right,
Well, the PFAS free stuff is not as good as the PFAS stuff.
right.
That's how it started. And a lot of companies had to like reevaluate what materials they were buying. And yeah, people give dry suits a hard time. So if there is going to be an industry that is going to struggle with this, it's probably going to be kayaking.
Yeah,
And a lot of companies are already releasing PFAS free stuff. Uh, I can't speak for any of them apart from IR. IR does not market the fact that they're PFAS free, but we have essentially been PFAS free apart from the water repellency stuff for a good few years.
okay.
And I think the
Yeah,
water repellency stuff is gradually changing if it hasn't already. I
that's
don't do
cool.
that side, I just do the team stuff.
Yeah, but well, it's helpful knowledge. That's really cool. Inherently difficult in a sport where our boats are made of crude oil. Uh,
Yeah, you do
you know,
wonder how many microplastics you've released into the environment when you go on a scrapey river.
uh, if you paddle like me, then too many. Yeah,
But yeah, hopefully a lot more quality over quantity.
you guys seem far more focused now on being like, wow, you're still using a dry suit that you got 4 years ago. That's great. Like,
Mhm.
than you must have this year's one on show. Like obviously there's a balance there because
Okay.
you want to be showing the new stuff, but showing that this gear has longevity, like that's really valuable.
Perhaps we've just got better at, saying those kind of things, but I think there was always a degree of that. I do
Okay,
remember
cool.
putting up a post on the IR Instagram or the IR Europe Instagram of a dry top that I was fixing the neck seal of because, I'm also the repairman. And it was from like 2005 or something like that. And I think this was in 2017, 2018. So, we
That's
were definitely
awesome.
talking about it
Yeah.
back then, but maybe we just didn't have the same priorities.
Sure. Yeah. 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 No, that's helpful.
But I think the quality to a certain degree has always been there. There was just, I think making a dry suit, if you've listened to any of the Hammer Factor stuff, making a dry suit is very, very difficult to do. So much harder than making a dry top. So there's definitely, yeah, I think there's incremental improvements every single year. But as you said, you're still using one that was 4 years old, and I've managed to do the same kind of things. I think the first IR dry suit I have is still owned, it's still used. My friend Ewan, who moved to New Zealand, has it and he still uses it to this day. And I got that in 2012.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think I still have the first item of IR product that I ever got, which I bought in 2009. And that was a set of thermals which were already secondhand at that point.
Lovely. I hope you
It,
washed them.
it's a union suit. Oh yeah, they that union suit is still going.
Yeah, and largely unchanged.
Yeah, totally.
It's
Yeah.
still pretty much the same cut, same
Well,
materials,
this one is slightly holier than it was, but yes, it is the same.
extra breathability.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It needs that. Um, oh dear.
But yeah, the union suit is one of these items that's like I don't know, I've had this like post in my head for a few years that I've never really got round to doing about like certain things that you need to be or you need to have owned to be like a big deal kayaker. Like IR union suit, Werner Powerhouse paddle, watershed dry bag. It's one
Yeah,
of these things
the
that it
Okoe
doesn't
one.
really
Yeah,
matter who you're associated with. Everyone's having
I've never had a powerhouse, so I guess I'm not a big
them.
deal.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, cut
Maybe I
off,
need to
instantly
reevaluate
cut
that.
off.
People are using the strike and things like that these days.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, yeah, I had someone comment on a video quite recently being like, why have you chosen the Surge over the very popular Powerhouse? And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's because it's what I have. um,
I'm shocked that the bomb flow videos didn't influence you to buy a powerhouse.
I think at the time I was way, way enamored of VE full
Mm.
carbon. Like, it was that similar era of there were lots of really good playboating videos of like Pringle and
Yeah,
all of the Nottingham guys, and all of them obviously at that time were using VE because that's it was from Nottingham, right? And so I think,
yeah, and they are
yeah,
really, really good
and
paddles.
they're really good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You know,
I use them over Werner these days.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've not had good fortune with paddles in the last couple of months, um, and yeah, they are all ones that have been problematic. But I think that's like highly coincidental.
Bad luck.
Oh dear. What would be a change that you would love to see, or a trend maybe that you'd love to see continuing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would love more volunteers. I That could be with the events. Freestyle kayaking is something that would be great to have more volunteers for, specifically coaches. I think a lot of kids probably see videos online and they're like, that looks cool. I'd really like to get into that. But unless they go to, a certain Matt Brooks YouTube channel and get some coaching tips, they're largely on their own to figure out how to do that.
Mm.
And I think if there were coaches that kind of spent a bit of time going from club session to club session and offering a bit of their time to show the way to these younger paddlers, then that would really bring on the participation. I think the events like the Park Jam are awesome, but if they're just once a year, that's not really enough to any kind of like focused coaching.
Yeah, yeah. You're not
Um,
sustainably feeding those young people. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so something that is like that and will bring out the numbers, bring out the enthusiasm, but on a
Mm,
more kind of repetitive basis, I think that would really help.
mm, that's great. I mean, I feel challenged by that, because I'm there like, well, I need to be paid for this. But no, that's a good
But hey,
challenge.
if you volunteer a little bit and I'm guilt tripping you here. If you volunteered a
You
little
should
bit
volunteer.
and then you got, 5 kids that really wanted to do freestyle kayaking, have you just created 5 customers?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you haven't, you've created 5 freestyle kayakers.
Yep.
It's a
Five
win.
friends, hopefully.
It's a win, isn't it? That's great. Well, let's make that your ultimatum to the
Yeah.
community.
Anyone that's sat in one of these freestyle meetings or, volunteer meetings with me is going to be like, oh, is he on about this again? Doesn't shut up about it. But, if you want to make a difference, that's how I'd go about doing it.
Amazing. There we go. That's our parting message for this Riverside Ramble. Get involved. Give your time.
Yep. Make a
And
difference.
I'm trying to live up to the person on the other side of the screen here and say I'm preaching to myself as well as to you.
And I'll do a very quick personal plug.
Please do.
Not,
Yes.
not even for immersion research. I am just about to stand for a director position for Paddle Scotland. And I'm doing this based on, these kind of views that we do need more volunteers and we do need to drive that participation. And I thought it would be a case of apply, get the job, because they said they didn't have enough. And people have actually run for it. So now I need to win an election. So if anyone in Scotland who is a Paddle Scotland member is watching this, I would love to get your vote.
Incredible. Where do people need to go for that? Is there a website?
The Paddle Scotland website has links to their annual general meeting. On that site, you can basically sign up to attend the meeting, or you can vote by proxy. The proxy vote means you'll get a list of the candidates. You check the boxes. You're allowed to vote for 4 people, and then you just send it off. You do not even need to attend a general meeting, which could, for a lot of people, maybe be a bit dull. But you can still make your voice heard and still make a difference.
Amazing. Well, there we go. I'll make sure to put a link to that in the description of this video so that
I
people
will
can
send you it so you don't
follow
have to
it
hunt for
very easily. Um,
it.
yeah, incredible. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for sharing your years of wisdom and expertise
No
uh,
problem.
and your smile. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.